He never owned a mansion. He never drove a supercar. For most of his life, he worked out of a small storefront office on a quiet street in a town almost nobody outside Los Angeles had ever heard of. But here's the thing. From that little office, one man quietly redrew the map of Southern California. He turned a sleepy, mostly white suburb into the first city in America with an Asian majority. He set off a wave of money so large it built skyscrapers, banks, and entire neighborhoods of millionaires. And the strangest part, most Americans have never heard his name. This is Asian Dynasty. The man we're talking about didn't get rich by spending. He got rich by seeing the future before anyone else in the room could. This is the story of Frederic Hsieh, the quiet realtor who invented the Chinese Beverly Hills, the boomtown he created, the fortune it unleashed, and the bitter backlash that almost tore it all apart. By the end, you'll understand something most people never figure out about real wealth. The loudest money is rarely the money that actually changes the world. Let's go back to the beginning. The year is 1963. A young man steps off a long journey from Hong Kong and arrives in the United States as a foreign student. His family had already escaped one country, fleeing communist China for Hong Kong years earlier. Now he was starting over again in a place where he barely spoke the language. He had no money, no connections, no famous last name, so he did what driven immigrants have always done. He studied, first English in Los Angeles, then community college up in Salinas, then Oregon State University. In 1969, he earned a master's degree in engineering. The city of Los Angeles hired him as an engineer. He left his pregnant wife and their pets behind in Oregon, rented a tiny bachelor apartment in Chinatown, and walked to work every morning at City Hall. This is the man who would soon be called the founder of a city. And at this point, he was just another quiet engineer carrying a lunch to work. Then came the accident that changed everything. When his family was ready to join him, she couldn't find affordable housing for a couple with a new baby and pets. So instead of renting, he bought. He purchased a 5-unit apartment building in Echo Park, lived in 1 unit, and rented out the other 4. Then he bought a 4-unit property in Silver Lake. And somewhere in there, the engineer fell in love with real estate. He got his license. He asked his employer for permission to sell property part-time. And in 1972, that search for the right neighborhood led him to a small city called Monterey Park. Now, in 1972, Monterey Park was nothing special on paper. It was affordable. It was close to downtown Los Angeles. It had newer homes and schools that parents trusted more than the cities. And it had one quiet detail almost nobody was paying attention to. It already had the largest Chinese population outside of Los Angeles proper, about 2,200 people in 1970. There was history humming under the surface too. Back in 1960, Monterey Park had elected a Korean American from Hawaii named Alfred Song to its city council, and just a year later, he became the first Asian American ever to serve in the California legislature. So this little suburb already had a quiet habit of opening doors that the rest of the country hadn't even noticed yet. Most realtors saw a sleepy bedroom suburb. Hsieh saw a door about to be kicked wide open because something huge was happening across the Pacific. Tension between Taiwan and mainland China was rising. United States immigration rules had loosened, and a whole generation of affluent Taiwanese families were looking for somewhere safe to put their money and their children. They wanted American homes, American schools, and American stability. They had the cash. What they did not have was a place that felt like it was built for them. Hsieh decided he would build that place, not with bricks, but with belief. He started buying up vacant lots and older properties in Monterey Park, planning to resell them to the wave of immigrants he was certain was coming. Then he did something that turned a real estate hustle into a movement. He formed a company called Mandarin Realty, and he started marketing Monterey Park 10,000 kilometers away in the newspapers of Taiwan and Hong Kong. His pitch was pure genius. He told prospective buyers that Monterey Park's gentle hills looked just like the hills of Taipei. He gave it a warm Chinese nickname that translated to lush, very green park. He even leaned on the local area code at the time, 818, because in Chinese culture, the number 8 is the number of prosperity and luck. And then he gave the city the label that would stick forever. He called Monterey Park the Chinese Beverly Hills. Think about the audacity of that. He was selling a quiet American suburb to people who had never seen it in another language, on another continent, by promising them it was a piece of home where they could get rich and feel safe. And it worked. In 1977, Hsieh did something bold. He invited some of Monterey Park's civic and business leaders to a lunch and laid out his vision. He told a room full of long-time, almost entirely white community leaders that their sleepy town was about to become a Chinese boomtown. The reaction? Most of them dismissed it. Some of them resented his nerve, this newcomer telling them what their city was going to become. But Hsieh wasn't guessing. He was reading a wave that had already started to move. and thousands of Taiwanese immigrants began arriving to scoop up Monterey Park property, often paying premium prices, sometimes buying homes sight unseen. The transformation was staggering. Businesses began relocating from old Chinatown. New shops, restaurants, and banks opened to serve a Chinese-speaking community that was exploding in size. Chinese signs spread across storefronts up and down the streets. Monterey Park earned a new nickname. People started calling it Little Taipei. Look at what the numbers did. In 1970, Monterey Park was about 15% Asian. By 1980, it had jumped to 34%. In a single decade, one realtor's prophecy had reshaped the population of an entire American city. Now, quick pause. Be honest with me in the comments. Before this video, had you ever once heard the name Frederic Hsieh? Because this is exactly the kind of quiet power this channel was built to uncover. The people who change everything, while the world looks the other way. Now stay with me, because here is where the story gets darker. Because the higher Monterey Park climbed, the harder some people pushed back. At first, the change looked like a triumph. In 1982, a woman named Lily Lee Chen was elected to the Monterey Park City Council. She joined Monty Manabog, a Filipino-American attorney who, back in 1972, had become the first Filipino-American elected to public office anywhere in the United States. And in 1983, Lily Chen made history of her own. She became the first Chinese-American woman to serve as mayor of any city in America. For the new Monterey Park, it felt like the future had arrived. But underneath the success, resentment was boiling. Longtime white residents, and some Latino residents too, felt like their city had transformed around them without their permission. White flight accelerated, with families selling out, often at the very premium prices Hsieh's boom had created. Some who stayed complained bitterly about all Chinese business signs they couldn't read. One sign from that era captured the ugliness perfectly. It read, "Will the last American to leave Monterey Park please bring the flag?" By 1986, the city had become a national symbol of a collision. Consider the swing. In 1960, Monterey Park had been roughly 85% white. By the mid-1980s, in a city of about 60,000 people, it was only around 22% white, with Latinos near 37% and Asians around 40%. That is one of the fastest demographic transformations in American history, and not everyone was ready for it. The backlash turned political fast. In 1985, an effort to make English the official language of Monterey Park failed. But the very next year, an anti-growth movement swept 3 new members onto the council, and Lily Chen and 2 of her allies were voted out. The new majority moved quickly. They passed resolutions backing English as the nation's official language. They directed Monterey Park Police to help federal authorities with immigration enforcement. They fired the City Planning Commission, which they viewed as too friendly to Chinese development. And they slapped a moratorium on new construction. To the Chinese community, the message was unmistakable. The door Hsieh had opened was being shoved shut, but the community pushed back hard. The pressure grew so intense that the council was forced to withdraw its language resolutions, and in 1989, it had to rescind the building moratorium entirely. The anti-growth movement lost, but the fight left deep scars and lasting bitterness on every side, and Asian buyers and developers, reading the hostility clearly, began spreading out into neighboring cities across the San Gabriel Valley. And through all of it, where was the man who started it? Not on a stage, not in a magazine spread. Frederic Hsieh never lived like the tycoons he created. There was no trophy mansion, no flashy empire with his name in lights. He ran Mandarin Realty, he kept his profile low, and he let the city he imagined speak for him. In 1999, while visiting Las Vegas, Frederic Hsieh died. He was just 54 years old, and here is the honest truth that fits this channel perfectly. He never made his personal fortune public. There is no clean billion-dollar number attached to his name. His wealth was never really about a bank account. His wealth was a city. Because look at what that one quiet bet actually became. By the 1990 census, Monterey Park was 57% Asian. That made it the first city in the entire United States with an Asian American majority, a genuine first in American history, and it traced straight back to a realtor's newspaper ads in Taipei. And it didn't stop at the city line. Today, Monterey Park is around 65% Asian. The wave Hsieh started rolled across the whole San Gabriel Valley. In 1970, the valley was about 2% Asian. Today, it's roughly 30%, and the San Gabriel Valley now holds the single largest concentration of people of Asian descent of any county in the United States. The wealthiest immigrants pushed into San Marino and Arcadia and bought mansions worth millions, cities that are now majority Asian too. And the scoreboard today is almost hard to believe. Walnut is around 69% Asian, San Marino 68, Rosemead 66, Monterey Park 65, Temple City, San Gabriel, Arcadia, Alhambra, one after another, all majority or near majority Asian. An entire chain of American cities transformed, and the first domino was a realtor with a newspaper ad. Then there's the money infrastructure he helped make necessary. As this community grew, it needed banks that understood it. One of them, East West Bank, had been founded in 1973 in Los Angeles Chinatown just to serve Chinese immigrants who couldn't get a fair shake anywhere else. That little institution grew up alongside the world Hsieh helped create. Today, East West Bank holds more than $79 billion in assets, carries a market value around $16 billion, and is the largest publicly traded bank headquartered in all of Southern California. A bank born to serve an overlooked immigrant community is now a giant on the stock market. That is the real measure of Frederic Hsieh's fortune, not a number on a rich list, an entire economy. So here is what it really means. We usually think the richest person in the room is the one with the biggest house, the loudest car, the flashiest watch. But Hsieh proves something different. The most powerful kind of wealth is the kind that builds something bigger than yourself, something that keeps growing long after you're gone. He arrived with nothing and a master's degree. He read one wave that everyone else missed. And from a small office in an ordinary suburb, he didn't just get rich. He created a place where hundreds of thousands of other people could build their own fortunes, raise their own families, and finally feel at home. Mandarin Realty, the company he started, still operates in Monterey Park to this day. That is the Monterey Park model of wealth. You don't have to be the loudest money in the room. Sometimes the quietest person with the clearest vision ends up owning the future. He never had to tell anyone how rich he was. He just handed an entire generation the keys to a place they could finally call their own and let the city carry his name for him. So tell me in the comments, who else built an empire that hides in plain sight? An empire you walk right past without ever knowing it's there. Because if a single realtor could turn a sleepy suburb into the first Asian majority city in America, then trust me, there are more of these hidden dynasties out there. And we are just getting started.